Did you know that some people are born poor, not because of a lack of money, but because of a mental inheritance? Because poverty doesn't always start in your wallet. Often, it starts in a phrase and a habit, at a dinner table where things were said like, "Money isn't for people like us. Being rich is bad. The poor go to heaven." But here's the truth. Poverty is hereditary, but so is wealth. And what you're living today may not be your fault. But if you repeat it, then it becomes your responsibility. Today, I'm going to show you how to identify what you've inherited and what you're passing on without even realizing it, and how you can break generations of limitation without losing your identity. The real legacy is material. Let's get something straight from the very beginning. The real legacy you leave behind isn't a house. It's not the dusty photo albums in the attic, the family car that limps through traffic with more tape than paint, or the land that's been in the family for generations, but no one's really sure who owns it. And it sure isn't that bank account with $237.85, a gym membership you forgot to cancel, and a Netflix password you still share with your cousin. The real legacy is invisible. It's not what people inherit when you die. It's what they absorb while you're alive. It's the tone in your voice when bills come in. It's the tension in your shoulders when someone says, "Let's talk about money." It's the story you tell with your actions, not your words. It's the beliefs, the unspoken rules, the habits that whisper, "This is how we do things around here." It's the way you look at money when the paycheck lands. Do you celebrate, budget, invest, or panic and blow it on things you don't even remember buying by next week? It's the stress you transmit silently while pretending everything's fine. It's the way you turn off the light quickly when the power bill's late, and the way your kids notice, even if they never say a word. Because children don't just learn for what you say, they download what you live. Let's take a classic example. Money doesn't grow on trees. Sounds innocent, right? A harmless phrase passed down for generations. But to a kid, it's not just a phrase, it's programming. Their brain receives the update. Install scarcity mindset now. Block abundance. Limit dreams. That one line shapes how they view wealth, opportunity, and even their own worth. And then comes December, Christmas, the season of giving and overdrafting. If you grew up watching your parents swipe cards until smoke came out of the machine just to make sure you had a good holiday, first of all, they loved you. No doubt about that. But second of all, you may have inherited something more than just a few nice memories under the tree. You may have inherited a belief that debt is normal, that sacrifice means love, and that living beyond your means is the only way to make people happy. That's not just a financial pattern. That's emotional conditioning. It teaches you to measure your value by what you can buy, not by what you can build. And let's be real. Most people think legacy means leaving behind money, property, maybe a business. But the real legacy? It's what's left inside the people you influence, and what's usually left in them. Not stocks or bonds, not Bitcoin wallets, but phrases like, "better safe than sorry." Money is the root of all evil. People like us don't get rich. Little seeds of fear wrapped up as advice. We call that wisdom. But really, it's just inherited worry. The truth is, you don't need to give someone money to teach them about money. You teach them with your relationship to it. You teach them with every anxious look at your banking app, with every time you say, "not now, maybe next month," with every impulse buy, every hidden bill, every argument whispered after the kids go to sleep. And trust me, they're watching, even when they're glued to their phones, scrolling TikTok or pretending not to care. They're watching how you handle stress. They're watching how you dream. Or don't. This isn't about shame. It's about recognition. Because until you see the script, you'll keep performing it, thinking it's your identity. But maybe, just maybe, your personality is just a set of behaviors passed down from someone who didn't know there was another way. So no, legacy isn't material. It's not something you can touch. It's something you live. It's mental. It's emotional. It's spiritual. And it's passed on every single day, in every decision, every belief. Every time you whisper, "we can't afford that," across the grocery aisle while your child watches. But here's the good news. Once you see the pattern, you don't have to keep it. You can update the system. You can uninstall the fear. You can plant new seeds, ones that grow abundance, clarity, and calm. You can stop being a prisoner of the legacy you received and start becoming the author of the legacy you'll leave. Poverty as an invisible family pattern. Let's talk about something that rarely makes it into the family group chat, the kind of thing we joke about in memes but never unpack over coffee. Generational poverty. Not the textbook kind they teach in sociology class, with graphs and timelines. I mean the kind that hides in plain sight, smiling at birthday parties, clapping at graduations, sitting across from you at dinner. The kind that wears clean clothes, pays rent barely, and says we're fine, even when the credit cards are maxed out. It's sneaky, because at first glance, everything looks okay. The fridge is full enough. The lights are on. There's a roof overhead. Maybe even a Netflix subscription, paid for by your cousin's ex-boyfriend's account. But underneath all that, something's off. There's a weight, a quiet pressure. Like everyone's treading water, afraid to admit how tired they are from keeping up appearances. These are the households where people hustle hard, like Olympic-level hard. Early mornings, late nights, no vacations, no sick days. Work, sleep, repeat. And still, somehow, it's never quite enough. The math never maths. The bills win a race every month, no matter how early you start running. And you begin to wonder, deep down, why is surviving so exhausting? Why does it feel like we're busy all the time and still not building anything? Then it hits you, we're not doing anything new. We're just repeating what we saw growing up, like background music playing on a loop, barely noticeable until you try to change the song. You see, poverty doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. It whispers when you instinctively pick the cheapest option, even if it breaks in a week. It whispers when you tell yourself, it's too late for me to learn about money. It whispers when you shut down every opportunity because it's probably a scam or people like me don't do that. And here's the most dangerous part. It's all familiar. It feels normal because that's what you saw. That's what was modeled. So you live in it, not realize it's a cage, a really well-decorated, family-approved, generationally enforced cage. Nobody said out loud, hey kids, here's how to stay stuck for the rest of your life. Of course not. What they said was, be careful, don't risk too much. Just be thankful you have a job. All spoken with love, all intended to protect. But love doesn't always come with an instruction manual. And protection can sometimes mean confinement. And when someone, maybe you, starts to challenge the norm, things get tense. Suddenly, your curiosity looks like rebellion. Your ambition sounds like arrogance. You trying to act like you're better than the rest of us. No, you're just trying to make sure your kids don't have to wonder if payday falls before or after the electricity bill is due. Because here's the thing. Stability is not the same as progress. Familiar is not the same as healthy. And just because it worked well enough for your parents doesn't mean it has to be your ceiling too. You probably heard that saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But what if it is broken? What if it's cracked in ways you just learned to live with? Like that old chair in your grandma's house. The one that leans to one side and makes a weird noise every time someone sits in it. But nobody dares throw it out because it's always been there. That's poverty, too. Not just in your wallet, but in your expectations. In your willingness to settle for discomfort simply because it's what you know. So no, this isn't about blaming anyone. Our parents did what they could with what they had. They survived so you could question survival. They walked so maybe you could run, or at least jog in the right direction. But it is about waking up, noticing, asking uncomfortable questions. Why do we think debt is normal? Why is budgeting seen as something only rich people do? Why do we treat financial literacy like it's some kind of luxury when it should be basic education? The moment you start to ask those questions, you start to see the outline of the cage. And once you see the bars, you can start looking for the door. Poverty, my friend, is not just about income. It's about information. It's about emotional inheritance. It's about the silent agreements families make, and whether or not you're brave enough to stop signing your name at the bottom. So here's the moment of truth. If your life has been all about just getting by, maybe, just maybe, it's time to aim higher than survival. Because you weren't born to relive someone else's script. You were born to rewrite it, to question it, to flip the page. And when you do, you'll realize that what felt like your family's ceiling was actually your foundation. A place to start from, not a limit to obey. Now the only question left is, what are you building next? Wealth is also inherited. But quietly, here's something they don't print on mugs or slap on Instagram reels. Just like poverty is inherited, so is wealth. But the way it shows up? Night and day. Poverty makes noise. Wealth keeps it classy. It walks in like it owns the place. Because, well, sometimes it does. Poverty bursts through the door like a bad guest. Unpaid bills, maxed out cards, emergency expenses that never knock. They just barge in. It's the broken washing machine that nobody knows how to fix. It's duct tape being used as a long-term strategy. It's we'll figure out later, when later always feels one paycheck too far. Wealth, on the other hand, it's the guest that arrives early, brings their own wine, and helps clean up afterward. It doesn't ask for attention. It doesn't need applause. It shows up in subtle flexes, peace of mind, prepared plans, and predictable outcomes. No drama, no panic, just systems at work. It's the quiet moment when someone's car breaks down and they don't spiral. They fix it. They move on. They don't post about how life is so unfair because they've been planning for this stuff for years. Let's be honest. Most people have been sold the image of wealth as loud and excessive, popping bottles, private jets, gold chains so heavy they require chiropractic care. And hey, sure, some people do that. Some even enjoy it. But real wealth, the kind that lasts, the kind that survives 3 generations and keeps the lights on no matter who's in office, that kind of wealth is quiet, boring even, and that's exactly why it works. Real wealth looks like this. A house that's paid off, not huge, but solid. A second savings account that no one posts about. Life insurance policies, wills, and emergency funds that were set up before TikTok even existed. A dinner table where kids learn about budgeting before they learn about algebra. You see, wealth is a culture, not just a number. It's passed down like family recipes. No drama, just discipline. It's how a family handles birthdays, emergencies, and the 5th grade science fair. It's whether they panic or plan. And you know what else? Wealthy households don't just teach about money, they model it. They don't say, money doesn't grow on trees. They say, let's plant one and figure out how to make it bear fruit year after year. They don't avoid conversations about money. They invite them. They treat money like a tool, not a threat. They use spreadsheets like most people use excuses. You'll see it in how they make decisions. They save before they spend. They invest before they celebrate. They research before they react. They read books before blaming the system. When something goes wrong, and it does, because no one is immune to life, they don't hit the panic button. They open the folder labeled contingency plan. They've got options. They've got buffers. They don't need a GoFundMe every time something breaks. But the best part? It starts early. In wealth-building families, kids grow up hearing phrases like, want that toy? Let's figure out a way to earn it. Let's save part of that birthday money. Future you will thank you. Here's how compound interest works. Now go be dangerous. And at first, sure, the kids might roll their eyes. But later, they're the ones who don't fall for every scam. They're the ones who understand risk, responsibility, and return before 25. They don't just inherit money. They inherit calm. Because wealth isn't just assets. It's options. It's the power to say no without fear and yes without guilt. It's the ability to walk away from toxic jobs, bad deals, and desperate decisions. It's freedom, not in theory, but in practice. Meanwhile, in the absence of that quiet wealth, most people are forced to learn money lessons the hard way. They learn about credit card interest after it's too late. They learn about budgeting when it becomes survival. They learn that lending money to family comes with drama, block numbers, and awkward birthday parties. And here's the good news. You can change the lesson anytime you choose to become aware of it. Start saying things like, how can we make this work? Instead of we can't afford that. I'm figuring it out. Instead of I'm stuck. This is hard, but I'm capable. Instead of this is just the way it is. Start doing little things with big impact. Pay attention. Track your money, even if it's not much. Talk about ideas, not just problems. Celebrate progress, not just perfection. You don't need to have all the answers to teach something meaningful. You just need to live like your actions matter, because they do. And one day, someone's going to look at you and say, I watched you, I learned from you, and because of you, I saw a different way to live. So the only question left is this. What are you teaching? And are you teaching on purpose? Or are you just hoping no one's paying attention? While they absolutely are, Breaking the inheritance isn't easy, but it's necessary. Let's not sugarcoat it. Breaking a cycle of generational poverty is not easy. It's not a YouTube short. It's not a two-step life hack. It's not wake up earlier, meditate, and boom, your bloodline is healed. No, it's messy. It's exhausting. It's lonely. And some days, it feels like trying to rebuild a house with your bare hands while everyone else is still sleeping inside it, telling you to be quiet. But here's the truth. Just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not worth it. Because breaking a financial inheritance, the unhealthy kind, isn't just about making more money. If that were the case, every lottery winner would be set for life. But we've seen how that story ends. Fast cars, big houses, and 5 years later, back to zero. No, this is deeper than income. It's about interrupting patterns so ingrained, they feel like personality traits. It's about unlearning. Unlearning beliefs that got passed down like family recipes, except instead of cookies, they're fear, shame, and guilt around money. You know the phrases. We've never had much, but at least we're honest. People like us don't do that kind of thing. Rich folks are greedy. Better safe than sorry. Just be grateful you have a job. You probably heard them growing up. Maybe you've even repeated a few. But here's the thing. At some point, you have to stop reciting and start rewriting. Breaking the cycle means looking at your family story, the whole thing, with love and respect. And then deciding, this story ends with me. The next one begins with me. 2. It means investing. Not because someone taught you how, but because you refuse to pass down ignorance. It means learning about taxes, real estate, stocks, interest rates, financial literacy. Even if no one in your house growing up ever mentioned those words without rolling their eyes or changing the subject. It means sitting down and make a budget when you'd rather scroll through memes. It means saying no to that spontaneous purchase, not because you're cheap, but because you're building something. It means breaking the silence around money that's been passed down like an heirloom. Because in many families, silence was a financial plan. Nobody talked about debt. Nobody talked about planning. Nobody talked about wealth. It was this mythical land where other people lived. And maybe, just maybe, you were the first one in your family to think, what if I actually learn how this all works? That thought alone is revolutionary. But the actions that follow, that's where the transformation begins. You're not just learning for yourself. You're learning so your kids don't have to guess. You're learning so your nieces and nephews can ask you questions you never had anyone to ask. You're learning so your family stops thinking of getting by as the peak of success. And let's get one thing straight. Breaking the cycle is not betrayal. Some people will make you feel like it is. Like you're turning your back on your roots. Like you think you're better than everyone else because you started saying things like investment property and savings goal. But here's what they don't get. You're not dishonoring your family. You're defending their name from stagnation. You're saying, I love where I came from so much that I refuse to let it become a cage. You're saying, I see the sacrifices they made, and I'm going to make sure they weren't in vain. You're saying, they survived, now I'm going to build. Because loving your family doesn't mean repeating their struggles forever. Sometimes, the greatest act of love is evolution. You don't break the chain because you're ashamed of your family. You break it because you want to give them something better than struggle. Not just money, possibility. Not just survival, strategy. Not just tradition, transformation. And yes, it's lonely sometimes. You'll be the one reading books no one else cares about. You'll be the one saying no when everyone else is spending. You'll be the one learning lessons from podcasts while your friends are watching reality TV. You'll be the one who goes first into the unknown, into the uncomfortable. But one day, you'll also be the one your family calls when they're ready. You'll be the one who made wealth feel normal. You'll be the one who showed that change is possible. So yes, breaking the inheritance is hard. But what's the alternative? Passing down the same limitations again and again like a family heirloom made of chains? You weren't born to repeat. You were born to rebuild, to reimagine, to restore, to rise, not in spite of your story, but because of it. Because maybe your parents gave you all they could. Now it's your turn to give your bloodline something they never even thought to ask for. A new starting line. How a family changes when just one person changes. Here's a truth that should be printed on every self-help book, tattooed on forearms, and whispered at every family dinner. You don't need your whole family to change for things to start changing. You just need one person brave enough to go first. And yes, that person might be you. Now let's be honest. That role doesn't come with applause. There's no medal. No one shows up a balloon saying, "Congratulations on breaking emotional and financial cycles." In fact, when you go first, it usually feels the opposite of glamorous. It feels weird. It feels lonely. It feels like you just showed up to a family barbecue with a salad and a spreadsheet, and everyone's looking at you like you just cussed at grandma. Because when one person in a family starts to change, it makes everyone else uncomfortable. Why? Because you're challenging the system not by shouting, but by simply being different. When you start budgeting while others are still winging it. When you start reading about financial freedom while your cousins are arguing over who gets the last beer. When you start saying things like, "I'm not spending that right now," instead of "Why, well, people look at you funny. They joke. They tease. Oh, look who's Mr. Responsible now. Since when are you all financial wisdom and growth mindset? You'll hear it all, because your change forces others to look at themselves, and not everyone's ready for that mirror. But here's the beauty. Change is contagious. Eventually, people catch it. At first, they mock, then they observe. Then, when life hits them hard, when debt piles up, when emergencies come, when they realize the job isn't enough, guess who they call? You. The weird one. The first one. The one they thought had changed too much. Who now happens to be the one with options, peace of mind, and a plan? Because in every family, there's always a first. The first to finish college. The first to start a business. The first to talk about investments instead of just expenses. The first to set boundaries. The first to say, "I love you, but I'm doing things differently." The first to not feel guilty for wanting more than survival. And let's be clear, being the first doesn't mean you're better. It just means you're willing to carry the torch, even if your hands shake while holding it. It means you're tired of seeing the same story play out generation after generation, and you've decided to edit the damn script. But here's the twist no one tells you. At first, they won't understand. But later, they might follow. Not because you told them to, but because you showed them how. Because sermons don't change people. Examples do. You can lecture your family for hours about budgeting, about not going into debt, about planning for the future, and they'll smile, nod, and go back to doing whatever they were doing. But when they see you quietly taking control of your life, when they see you not panicking when the car breaks down, when they see you finally taking a vacation and not putting on a credit card, when they see you being generous without becoming broke, something shifts. They realize, maybe it's possible. Maybe we don't have to live in survival mode forever. Maybe one of us can rise, and maybe, just maybe, more can follow. And let's talk legacy. Being the first in your family to change course is not a curse. It's a calling. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, you'll feel misunderstood. But you will become the proof that it can be done. One day, a niece, a nephew, a cousin, a sibling, someone you barely realized was paying attention, will come up to you and say, "I saw you doing things differently. That gave me permission to believe I could too." You don't have to change everyone. You just have to change yourself, consistently, courageously, unapologetically. And watch how, little by little, that ripple moves through your family. You go from being the weird one to being the one who figured it out. From the black sheep to the blueprint, because that's how it works. First they laugh, then they ask questions, then they follow your lead. So no, you don't need a family-wide revolution today. You don't need to drag everyone into your vision. You just need to walk your path, loud enough to be heard, quiet enough to be respected, consistent enough to be remembered. And one day they'll say, "It all started when you decided to go first." Don't feel guilty, but do feel responsible. Let's get this out of the way. You are not to blame for how you started. You didn't choose your upbringing. You didn't get to design your childhood like a video game character. You didn't wake up at 5 years old and say, "I'd like to grow up surrounded by financial stress, emotional pressure, and mysterious adult conversations about bills." No, you got handed a script. Some parts were loving, some confusing, and some downright broken. You grew up watching people do their best with what they had, which, let's be real, sometimes wasn't much. You may have seen parents hustle day and night and still come up short. You may have seen holidays skipped, dreams postponed, big plans shelved because the rent was due. In reality doesn't care about your vision board. You may have grown up in a house where money wasn't just scarce, it was scary, where the phrase "we'll figure it out" was a family's official financial strategy, where wealth was something other people had, and where talking about money felt like breaking some unspoken rule. But listen closely. None of that is your fault. You didn't cause the scarcity. You didn't write the fear. You didn't install the emotional wiring that told your family this is just how it is. But, and this is a big but, you are responsible for what happens next. See, the moment you become aware of the pattern, the moment you realize, wait, maybe this doesn't have to be my story forever, that's the turning point. That's where accountability steps in and says, you didn't start the fire, but it's on you to put it out. Because knowing and doing nothing, that's no longer innocent. That's a choice, and choices shape futures. You're not expected to have it all figured out. But now that you've seen the pattern, you can't unsee it. Now that you've heard the call, you can't pretend it was background noise. You're holding a generational baton. It came with some dents, some weight, some emotional dust. But you have the power, right now, to hand it off cleaner than how it got to you. Every generation has a mission. Some are here to survive. Some are here to stabilize. Some are here to build. Maybe you're here to transform. Maybe your mission is to be the one who says, it ends here. The fear ends here. The silence ends here. The chaos ends here. From this point on, we build something better. And you don't need a cape or a TED Talk to do that. You just need small, brave, consistent decisions. Because people think breaking a generational pattern means some grand, heroic act. But most of the time, it looks like opening a savings account when no one else ever did. It looks like saying no to debt-backed Christmas presents and yes to long-term stability. It looks like telling your kids the truth about money, not scaring them, but preparing them. And let's be clear, this isn't about guilt. Guilt is heavy. It paralyzes. It says, you're a bad person because of what you inherited. Responsibility, on the other hand, is powerful. It says, you have a chance to do something different, something better, something lasting. It's the quiet realization that while you didn't cause a storm, you might be the one who calms it. And the truth is, someone has to go first. Someone always does. Not because they're perfect, not because they're better, but because they decide to be the bridge between what's always been and what could be. You don't owe the world perfection. You don't owe your ancestors an apology. You owe yourself and the people coming after you a fighting chance at something more than survival. So don't feel guilty. That helps no one. But don't duck the weight of the moment either. Because if you're reading this, if something inside you is nodding quietly, maybe you're the one the chain has been waiting for. Maybe it doesn't break with luck. Maybe it doesn't break with time. Maybe it breaks with you. 3 steps to change your financial inheritance. All right, you've accepted the mission. You're ready to break cycles, rewrite the script, and stop the generational hand-me-downs that sound like money doesn't grow on trees. We're not that kind of family. We'll never get ahead, just survive. Cool. Now what? Where do you even begin when you're trying to do what no one in your family ever did? How do you change a financial inheritance that's been passed down like a mysterious family curse? Except instead of a haunted mansion, you get student debt, emotional exhaustion, and a vague fear tax season. Let me give you the roadmap. 3 steps. Simple to say, brave to do, but life-changing if you stick with them. Step 1. Rewrite your narrative. Let's start with a voice in your head. You know the one. The annoying roommate that lives rent-free and says things like, "You're not good with money. That's not for people like you. Maybe if you were born rich, things would be different. Why even try?" That voice is not the truth. It's just a tape someone left play in your brain when you were too young to hit eject. So here's the first move. Stop saying, "I can't." Start asking, "How can I? I can't invest. How can I start with $20 in a YouTube tutorial? I'll never get out of debt. How can I learn to manage this better than anyone else in my bloodline ever has? I wasn't taught this stuff." Exactly. So now I'll become the teacher. Your story isn't finished. It's not even close. So stop living like the ending was already written. Start editing. Start flipping the narrative. Because every time you rewrite a limiting belief into a possibility, you loosen the grip of generational scarcity. And no, you don't have to be perfect, but you do have to be aware. Because language shapes thinking, and thinking shapes outcomes. Step 2, invest in yourself. before anything else. Before you start putting money in stocks, crypto, or some cousin's mysterious business idea, put it in your brain. Put it in your focus. Put it in your habits. The most underappreciated investment strategy on the planet? Knowledge plus discipline plus time equals wealth. Buy books before buying gadgets. Take a course before taking a risk. Learn about your money before handing it to someone else. And let's get one thing straight. Investing in yourself is not just about racking up certifications or hoarding motivational quotes. It's about developing you as the asset, becoming sharper, more intentional, more strategic. You are the business. You are the startup. You are the economy you're trying to grow. Want a higher income? Learn a skill that commands it. Want to make better financial decisions? Develop a mindset that makes those decisions feel natural. Want to lead your family out of the fog of survival? Then become the lighthouse. Because if you're waiting for someone else to give you permission, here it is. You are worth the investment. More than sneakers, gadgets, weekend escapes, or whatever temporary hit dopamine is currently on sale. Step 3. Build capital. Symbolic and real. Now we're getting tactical. Because changing your financial legacy isn't just about having more money. It's about becoming someone who is trusted with more, by people, by institutions, by yourself. So let's break this down. A. Build symbolic capital. This is the stuff money can't buy, but that attracts money like a magnet. Your credibility. Do you do what you say you'll do? Do people trust your word? Your reputation. When people hear your name, do they think solid, or do they think flaky with a side of excuses? Your network. Are you surrounded by people who elevate your thinking, challenge your comfort zone, and support your goals? Or is your circle basically a group chat full of broke opinions? Symbolic capital opens doors. It gets you into rooms where opportunities live. It earns you referrals, second chances, and strategic alliances. Without it, you might get lucky. With it, you become inevitable. B. Build real capital. Yes, now we're talking money. Assets, tangibles. Start small. A savings account, a side hustle, an index fund, a piece of land, a business idea you've been sitting on for 3 years, because now's not the right time. The point isn't to become rich overnight. The point is to start building ownership over your time, your income, your choices. Because let's be real, you can't pass down your Netflix history, but you can pass down equity. You can pass down habits, documents, protections, accounts, structures, and wisdom. So build both. Build the version of yourself who can manage wealth, and the wealth that sustains the next version of your family. The bottom line, this isn't just about you. It's about who comes after you. The people who will never meet your grandparents, but will live with the consequences of their decisions or the breakthroughs of yours. So change the story. Change the structure. Change the legacy. Not just by earning more, but by becoming someone future generations will thank, not just for the inheritance, but for the example, the new DNA you'll leave behind. Let's talk about inheritance, not the one with lawyers and signatures, but the one that starts way earlier, before the bank accounts, before the wills, before the family drama over who gets the car and who gets the microwave. Let's talk about the real inheritance, the invisible one, the one that shapes how your children walk into the world. Not what they hold in their hands, but what they carry in their heads. Here's a wild idea. What if the greatest gift you ever give your children isn't money, land, or a shiny car or bow on it, but a way of thinking that makes them unstoppable? What if your legacy isn't measured by what they inherit, but by what they'll never have to survive? What if your greatest accomplishment is that they never have to escape poverty because they were never in it to begin with? Thanks to you. That, my friend, is generational power. Not in the flashy sense, not in the look at what I left behind sense, but in the quiet, steady, world-shifting way that only mindset can create. Because here's the truth. Money runs out. Mindset runs deep. You can lose a job. You can lose a property. But if your kids know how to think, how to manage, build, invest, delay, and grow, then you haven't just left them resources. You've left them resilience. And that doesn't happen through lectures. It doesn't happen by handing them a PDF titled 10 Wealth Principles You Should Memorize Before You're 18. It happens in the living room, in the car rides, in the little choices they watch you make every day. It happens when they hear you say, "No, we're not buying that today. We're saving for something bigger." Or, "Let's figure out how to earn that, not just ask for it." Or even, here's how compound interest works. Trust me, it's better than magic. They won't always say it out loud, but they're taking notes. Children don't learn wealth. They absorb it, not through theory, but through culture, through atmosphere, through repetition. And here's the best part. You don't need $1 million estate to leave them something priceless. You just need to give them a different baseline. Instead of them starting adulthood saying, "How do I get out of debt?" they'll ask, "How do I build something meaningful?" Instead of thinking, "Money is the enemy," they'll think, "Money is a tool. Let's use it wisely." Instead of inheriting fear, they inherit confidence. Instead of doubt, they inherit curiosity. Instead of survival instincts, they inherit strategic thinking. That's not fantasy. That's structure. That's daily choices, adding up over time until they rewrite the family story so well, no one even remembers how it used to go. You know what that becomes? A new form of DNA. Not biological, but generational. A set of beliefs and mental habits so deeply rooted, they get passed on like eye color, like posture, like the way grandma folded the laundry. Except now, what you're passing on isn't just tradition, it's transformation. Imagine this. Your children grow up not just knowing how to earn money, but how to manage it, multiply it, and most importantly, detach their self-worth from it. They won't equate a bad financial month with being a failure. They'll know how to pivot. They'll know how to rebuild, because you showed them that wealth is not something you chase. It's something you grow. And when people ask them where they learned that, they won't say from a book or from TikTok. They'll say, "I watched my mom. I watched my dad. I watched them build it from nothing. I watched them choose differently." That's legacy. So no, the most important thing you leave behind won't be parked in the driveway. It won't be fenced in with a "for sale" sign. It won't be divided up by siblings arguing over furniture. It'll be in their mindset, their habits, their capacity to thrive. And the wildest part? They may never realize how much of that came from you, because you made it feel so normal, so natural, that they didn't grow up needing to heal from money. They just grew up ready. That's the kind of inheritance that doesn't just bless your kids. It changes the entire direction of your bloodline. And it starts with you, not being perfect, not being rich, but being aware and being brave enough to plant seeds that might not bloom for years, but will never stop growing. You know, maybe you didn't get handed much. Maybe you grew up with stress, silence, and just enough to get by. No inheritance, no guidance, no backup plan, just hope and a lot of improvising. But here's the thing no one told you. You don't need a head start if you're willing to be the start. You can be the one who ends the excuses, the one who makes financial peace normal, the one who turns survival into strategy, not just for you, but for everyone who comes after. And yeah, it's hard. You'll feel weird. You'll feel alone sometimes. You'll feel like no one gets why you're changing. But keep going, because someone is watching you. Someone's going to follow your lead. And they'll never forget that you went first, when it was hardest. Now I want you to do something brave. Right now. In the comments, finish the sentence. The cycle I refuse to pass on is, say it. Write it like you mean it. Like you're claiming your story from here on out. Because when you speak it out loud, you stop being a prisoner of the pattern. And you start becoming the one who breaks it. I'll be reading every single one. Let's build this legacy together. One comment, one story, one brave decision at a time. And hey, if this hit you, even just a little, if something I said made you stop and think, then don't let this video be another piece of content you scroll past and forget tomorrow. Hit that like button, not for me, but so this message keeps showing up for people who need to hear it. Subscribe if you're ready to build something different, not just for you, but for your whole bloodline. And if you got someone in your life, a brother, a friend, a cousin, maybe even your future self, send this video to them. Share it. Start a conversation. Let this be the beginning of something way bigger than just another motivational clip. This isn't just content. This is a new story. And you're part of it now.